welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. Elizabeth and I used to do improv comedy together back when we were 19.
But we lost touch.
And then a couple of years ago, we found each other again and discovered
I'd become a painter, a writer, a performer, a Pilates teacher, an animal lover, and a biologist.
Hey, I'm a painter, performer, writer, Pilates teacher, animal lover, and well, okay, I'm not a biologist, but we're long lost
friends.
And we're both speculative fiction writers.
My work has appeared in Metastellar.
Metastellar, for those of you who don't know, is an online magazine that specializes in publishing original science fiction, horror, and fantasy. There's a link below.
We're delighted again to be talking today to Madeleine Holly-Rosing, the award-winning writer, creator of the steampunk supernatural graphic novel series Boston Metaphysical Society. It's about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist based on a real person who battles supernatural forces in the late 1800s Boston. Madeleine has done, 6 graphic novels?
Let's see. I have a 6-issue miniseries, which is in trade paperback, and 4 sequels. So that would actually be 10, sort of. It depends on how you're counting.
Yeah, 10. Well, that's a lot. And now she's doing a full production audio. So actors, music, everything. And she's running her 10th Kickstarter.
That is correct.
So that's what we wanted to talk to her today about. Just giving the background first about running a Kickstarter campaign, because certainly Elizabeth and I have never done it. And we'd love to hear a little bit about it. It's kind of the way the world goes, it seems.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is my 10th Kickstarter. The first one I ran, like for many people, did the crash and burn, which is not unusual at all. That was many years ago. And so we basically re-strategized what we did wrong. We actually did well for no one knowing who we were, what we were. And we had self-financed 3 of the 6 original issues. And so we were going to Kickstarter to finish the next 3 issues for the mini series and then put it into one big, beautiful trade paperback. So we were asking at the time $25,000, which would be to pay for my artist and colorist for everybody and to get it printed up. We ended up with, I think, a little over 200 backers and over $7,000. And so we said, okay, this is where we have these backers. We have this amount of people who are interested. What could we do for the 7,000 if we scale back? And so what we did is we did Kickstarters for each individual issue, and then did one for the trade paperback. And so that brought down the initial funding goal. So when we launched our second Kickstarter, I think we had a funding goal of like $3,000. We funded in 24 hours.
Ah.
And I have a question. I'm sorry. Is it Kickstarter? You have to get the amount, or you don't get any. That
is correct. Kickstarter is for creative projects only. No charities. I don't think they're even doing any kind of equity crowdfunding. You usually go to a different platform for that. Indiegogo, I believe, does equity crowdfunding. And yes, you have to reach your goal, or you do not get your money. The backers do not get charged whatsoever. And so it's, either you do or you don't. And what started becoming a regular thing is, in order to get more money once you reached your initial goal, is people started saying, hey, let's start doing stretch goals. So if you say you made the 10,000, whatever it is, say $10,000, say, hey, at $12,000, everyone who has pledge is going to get this digital goodie, everyone. And then, you know, you have another tier of like, oh, everyone who has pledged to a physical reward is going to get these magnets or trading cards or whatever it is. So you start getting more money in. It's also an incentive for the backers to encourage other people to back, because that way everybody gets more goodies.
And have you looked into like the Indiegogo one, I guess, where you don't reach your goal? How does
I don't. And I did do an Indiegogo, what they call an in-demand campaign, which is, at the time, I don't know what it is now, was by invitation only. Basically, once you had a successful campaign on Kickstarter, you could move it over to Indiegogo and keep going if you wanted to. Basically, they were dovetailing off your success on Kickstarter to move you over to a different platform, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, that was brilliant for Indiegogo to come up with that. But for me, I just can't spend the time marketing something that has no end date. And it lacks the same kind of urgency that, hey, if we don't make this amount of money by X date, we're gone.
So how long do Kickstarter campaigns run?
The average is 30 days.
Oh, okay.
You can do longer and you can do shorter. And I know people who love doing the shorter ones. Usually those are for smaller goals. Usually the item in question is like done or near being done and can be shipped out pretty quickly. It just depends. Everyone has a different way of doing it.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were telling Elizabeth and I that you've got a book about how to
Correct.
do a Kickstarter campaign.
Correct. Yeah, I was just gonna mention that.
Oh, okay.
I was about 3 or 4 Kickstarters, about 3 or 4 successful Kickstarters under my belt, and I started seeing these terrific campaigns, just amazing projects that weren't getting funded, and I could see that the creator wasn't prepared. Running a Kickstarter is a full-time second job if you have another job. It's not something you can throw up like spaghetti and, you know, hope people will come. This is now become a profession, running a Kickstarter.
Can you walk
campaign.
us through, like, obviously not every detail, but you know, just the simple details. Like, what do you need to, I can see the stretch goal part, but how do you reach your audience even and start?
Well, that's one of the things I discuss in the book is we cover, you know, finding your backers, setting up pre-launch, prepping your pre-launch, prepping your emails, your marketing letters, your press releases, campaign strategies, fulfillment, publicity, and also I have case studies in the book. It is geared towards comic book creators, but the strategies are applicable to any Kickstarter campaign, or actually any crowdfunding campaign. And one of the main things to tell people is that you have to have a decent email list of people who will fund 35% of your project before you even launch.
Wow.
Because if you really aren't 35% funded within the first 3 days at this point, it's going to be an uphill slog.
Now, if say you do your Kickstarter and you don't reach it, can you just start it over basically?
You can, but what I would always suggest to people is take a month away to think about how you want to approach it before you immediately just relaunch. Even though you may even know exactly what you want to do, it gives the appearance to your backers that you've actually thought about it, instead of like, oh, okay, we failed, 2 days later you launch again. I mean, to me, that tells me from all outside appearances that they haven't really thought about how to have a successful campaign. And I would always recommend take at least a month, keep the communication open, because even though you failed, you can still send messages through Kickstarter to the people who backed you. You won't get any of their emails or any kind of details about them at all. but you can message them through Kickstarter and keep them apprised of what's going on until you relaunch. And that's another thing. Communication is very, very important, and keeping your backers updated. I actually did an update this morning for the audio drama Kickstarter, which is running right now. Just to let people know that we're 90% funded. We've got 19 days to go. We're in a really good position, but please, thank you very much, but please keep sharing and posting and letting people know about it so we can, bring this puppy home, so to speak, and start getting into those stretch goals, which are always fun.
So it doesn't sound like a Kickstarter would be good though, unless you had a pretty good mailing list, right?
I would advise people not to launch one unless they had a decent mailing list. Yeah.
And what is a decent mailing list? How many do you think?
Depending on your budget goal, whatever your goal is, if you need whatever 35% is enough people on that mailing list that you are convinced will put in money for what I would call your bread and butter goal, which is usually about anywhere from $15 to $25, that will give you 35% of your budget. So you're 35% there. Yeah, I mean, depending on, like my last Kickstarter for my graphic novel, which is very different from what I'm doing right now, we were fully funded in 6 hours.
How much were you asking for?
$4,250. $4,250. And that covered printing, incentives, and some pre-Kickstarter stuff that needed to be paid for in order to run the Kickstarter, like the video and things like that. Yeah, this one is a completely different medium, and it's also under a different business name. I had to incorporate, my lawyers told me, said you should incorporate if you're doing this audio drama, because you're hiring all these people. So my new company name is Queen of Mercia LLC. And so, I mean, there's intricacies about Kickstarter itself that I could go on and on about community and how things are distributed and building community there, but that would take way more time than we have.
So you were, and I'm sure you outlined this in your book, you're mentioning, because I hadn't even thought of it till you're saying it, you have to think about how much all the things to promote it on Kickstarter are going to cost you going into it, the video, all the promo things you're going to give away, all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you're giving away for free, but like for stretch goals, and I see this mistake a lot, is that people think of like all these wonderful creative stretch goals, but they didn't budget their stretch goals. So even though they've made the money to meet that stretch goal, they didn't make enough money to either pay for it, or they didn't have enough buffer within the stretch goal that if something goes wrong, say like, you're making a series of prints to go out to people. What if that first batch, there's something wrong with it? And it was your fault. You got to go pay for it.
Right.
So you have to put in buffer, what we call contingencies, to cover any problems. So you do have to sit down and figure out a budget. And
you outline some of that in the book?
Yes.
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see myself going headstrong or headlong into something and just being all excited and not laying any of that out. And then
yeah, that sounds like us. That sounds like us. Let's start a Kickstarter project with absolutely no research or knowledge and have it fail.
Right.
Yeah, there's my book, there's other books, and there's a lot of articles out there. There's a lot of stuff on running a Kickstarter out there now successfully. Can you put you do have to do your homework.
Can you put your picture back up of your book?
Sure.
And then we have a link below for that for anyone interested. So that's so cool. I think I'm gonna pick one up. I don't know when I don't even know when or where I'll have a Kickstarter campaign, but I just feel like it's something to do at some point.
Yeah, we need to do an audio drama too.
Well, I mean, I'd like to do, I mean, because I would like to independently self-publish. So,
Yeah.
but I do not have the mailing list, so it would have to be some other
Yeah.
time, but.
Yeah, unless you have a mailing list through Metastellar of your people, not only who contribute, but who get, I mean, they get it. Do you send emails out to those people who, I don't know how you run your business.
No, and actually, that's not an element of it that Elizabeth and I are part of, so I can't answer that. But I do know that, you know, right now, if we were doing something through Metastellar, that would be a possibility. But if we were independently doing it
Oh, no,
without
yeah.
Metastellar, then they would be their own independent
Yeah.
entity from us.
Right. Metastellar does have a newsletter they send out weekly, which it's great. They do the 50 free sci-fi and a lot of links to things, but it's more informational that way. I had a mailing list, but I sent out a thing. I had a book out. I had a story in an anthology that was coming out for Earth Day during 2000, and I sent it to my mail list, and I got a really angry person because they were dealing with COVID and they thought I was asking for money. It was sort of, you know, it was this it was like, I'm just telling you this book is out and it supports, you know, environmental causes. I'm not asking you for money during COVID. But it was such a disturbing experience that I have never sent anything out to my mail list again, and was like, I forget this. If they're going to yell at me, I'm not sending them any.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the response, you know, you delete them, you know, from your mailing list, and then keep going. And people just, you know, you give them an easy way to unsubscribe, and they can unsubscribe, and that's fine. I know I do that. But I do have an interesting story about the Kickstarter book. I was at, I think, WonderCon pre-pandemic, and a gentleman came and bought the book on a Friday night. And so he came back on Saturday and he goes, I read the book. He says, I'm never going to run a Kickstarter campaign. And I said, that was the best $10 you ever spent, because now you know what is required of you to run a successful Kickstarter campaign. And there's nothing wrong with not going to Kickstarter. It's not for everybody. If you want to just, you know, budget $20 a month to go to an artist, or go to a cover artist, or to your editor if you're doing a novel or anything else, yeah, you know, self-fund. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I just don't like to see people setting themselves up for failure.
And how do you run your mail list, if you don't mind? Do you use
I have different tiers of mail lists. The main sales funnel goes through MailChimp, and I just do one once a month. And I have people sign up when I'm at Comic-Cons, and then I send them an invitation so I get a double opt-in. And but it's like I said, it's not huge, but it's mighty. So I just have the core people who are really interested. And then I do a newsletter. It's a little different than others. I start off with, you know, the latest Boston metaphysical news, you know, what's going on, if there's a new book or a con or something. I also do reviews for fan-based press, novels and comics. So there's reviews there, fun articles. I do a thing. I got this idea, I think, from the last virtual Nebula convention, of doing like a monthly rant. And for a while I was doing different recipes and telling stories about the recipes and how they got to be where they were and why I have them and what they meant to me. And so I've been changing that up a little bit now. And then sometimes I've been doing some book swaps with other authors, and, you know, just letting people know if someone has a deal on their book. But yeah, just keeping it just kind of lively and simple, because most people don't mind signing up for it, because they're like, hey, it's only once a month, and, you know, I'm not going to spam you because, quite frankly, I don't have time. And then they just laugh and move on, and then sign up. So it's great. So yeah, I use MailChimp for my primary sales funnel.
I know so many people who market just say it's not about completely about numbers, like you're saying. It's about finding the ones who are really interested, finding your people. And if you have a list of your people, they're going to support you however they can.
Yeah. No,
So-
that's quite true. And I do a lot of conventions. Well, pre-pandemic I did. The last couple of months I've done 6 conventions like within 6 weeks, because everyone's trying to just jam them all in and towards the end of the year. And then my last one will be the limited San Diego Comic-Con over Thanksgiving. So yeah, people can find me there in small press. I will be there. But I used to do about 20 cons a year, but 3 years ago, well, yeah, 3 years ago, I scaled that back to about 9 or 10.
Wow. Yeah, cons can be very, loss comes off also happening during.
Yeah.
Why do they do them over Thanksgiving? That's just beyond me, because so many people are out of town. It's a little different this year, but or last year, but
Because science fiction writers are friendless losers who have no place to go and things.
Are you talking about yourself, Elizabeth?
Me. Yes, I'm talking about me.
It's just funny. It's just strange.
I didn't really mean that about science fiction.
I know
writers.
you
If I
didn't.
offended
I know.
anybody, I'm sorry.
I know you didn't. But yeah, it's just weird because now that's the 2 of them. San Diego and LA have their conferences that weekend. It's
Yeah.
they're in
It is
competition
great.
and it's weird. Yeah. So to me. Anyway. Well, thank you so much, Madeleine. I'm definitely going to get a copy because I want to see what it entails. And I may well just be putting it on the shelf or giving it to someone too, because it does sound like an awful lot of work.
It is.
Yeah, but
is.
I'm looking forward to listening to the radio drama too.
Me too.
Very,
Me too.
I love radio dramas, like I say. And yes, thank you so much for talking to us. And Maria and Alex, thank you so much for producing and directing. And now we're going to go with the best thing we learned this week. Okay, I think this is cool. So wind farms are looking at how fish school to figure out the patterns of how they can use for wind to put up wind turbines in better places. And they're looking at the way that schools of fish sort of, can move as a huge group to design these new towers because they, schools of fish appear to move as one, turning and expanding and parting and coming back together. And scientists have been discovering them to learn how to make wind farms more effective by being able to adjust.
Adjust to kind of catch the wind.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I know also that if they depending on where they place the wind turbines, they can either be bad for birds or birds can just fly right around them. So it's a question of heights too.
Interesting. Mine is just a little science thing I read that in a piece of amber in Myanmar, they found the world's smallest, they're calling it a dinosaur bird because it was 1/10 of an ounce. And they're calling it, I'm going to say this wrong, but Oculundentaris, because it's something to do with its teeth. What do they call it? Eye-tooth bird. So it had teeth. It almost looks like a little hummingbird, but it had teeth. So they're pretty sure it ate insects. And it was preserved in that piece of amber for 99 million years or something like that.
Wow.
Wow. Well, an eye tooth, birds get eye teeth when they're in their eggs, and it's a little thing on the end of their beak that helps them crack out of their egg, and then slowly over a month or whatever, it just
falls off or something.
Yeah, but if you raise baby birds,
which you
like
do,
you see these eye teeth on the end of their beaks.
Well, and I was reading, going on birds now, about the parasitic birds in the nests that get, and some of them, it sounds like that's almost what they kill the other nestlings with. So they do kill, some of them kill, they kill the other birds in the nest.
Yeah, they either kill them or push them out.
Push them out. It's pretty. barbaric and wild and good science fiction fodder.
Yeah.
So,
So a
Madeline.
lot of birds, you know, they push their siblings out. Their
That's
younger
true, too.
siblings out.
Yeah.
Which, being a younger sibling, I always feel this very deeply.
Me too. So,
No
I guess it's
worries.
more on a personal career note.
that's
A friend of
good.
mine who I had, actor friend of mine who I co-written a pilot with, let me know that I guess a small press publisher is interested in us doing a series of books based on it. So I don't know. Yeah, that's still much to learn about that. I have to go talk to them, but that was kind of fun to learn.
And
Yeah,
where will you,
is it another Boston Metaphysical or?
No, it has
something
nothing to
like
do with Boston Metaphysical. No.
you are going to be busy, 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 busy.
Yeah.
As you already are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
all of
you.
this.
Thank you.
And we'd love
Thanks.
to have you back to talk more.
Yeah.
There's so much
It's so
information.
great. And we want to thank everyone for joining us today and coming to listen to our episodes, and today's episode with Madeleine Holly-Rosing. And if you like it, please give us a thumbs up and leave us any comments. We'd love to know what you're thinking, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss future episodes. And if you'd like to support Metastellar and everything we're doing, go to our Patreon page. You can leave a donation there if you'd like to, and we'd love it. It helps to support new fiction, because everything all of us do at the magazine is all volunteer, and all our Patreon page supports is paying for our authors, can't talk anymore, paying for our authors and new fiction. So help us out if you can, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.